Family members that think they're entitled to things from you can be some of the most annoying people in this universe ever to exist. And our first story is evidence of that. So I'm like, what is going on? Anyway, guys, g'day there, it's your main man Markee, and welcome back to another episode of r/AmITheA. Now, if you love today's bloody good content, I want you to sit back, relax, chug a prawn of the Barbie, and get ready for some spicy stories. Let's go. Am I the a-hole for saying no when my family said that I should let my sister have her honeymoon at my house? So for some backstory, my house used to belong to my parents, but they sold it to me in 2017. It had been a family vacation home of sorts. Now every couple of years when my grandparents were alive, they'd invite us kids up there for a week. Fast forward to the end of 2016, my sister got accepted to a dream college. Won't say which, but it's a big one. Everyone was excited and proud of her, me too, but a week after that, my parents called, asking if I'd found a house yet. I was looking for one and my family knew it, and I'd been saving up since I started my first job at 20. I said no, so my dad suggested I buy the lake house from them. I asked why they wanted to sell it, and it turns out my sis didn't have any savings for college and didn't get some scholarship like she'd planned, and our parents couldn't afford to pay for everything either. I asked why she didn't just get student loans, and they said they didn't want her ruining her credit. So their solution was to sell the lake house and use the money from that to finance her college. I had lots of good memories from the lake house, so eventually I agreed. I work via computer, so after getting a good internet connection out there, I moved right in, and I've been there ever since. My girlfriend moved in permanently last year before lockdown, and it's been pretty blissful. In 2019, my sister and her college boyfriend got engaged. Parents agreed to pay for her wedding, but like every other wedding around then, things got set back. Sis had to postpone her wedding until this year. She plans to have it in December. I even agreed to be in the bridal party. Issues came up recently when my sis asked where I was going to stay for the 2 weeks after her wedding. Puzzled, I answered, my house? And she got a sour look and said that that wouldn't work. Her and her fiancé would be there, and they wanted private time. I asked why they'd be at my house, and she said that's where they were having their honeymoon. 2 weeks alone at a lake house. I said that was news to me, and she insisted our parents said that it was fine. But I said it wasn't their place to make decisions about my house. After arguing, she called our parents, who said that I was being unreasonable. I said I didn't want my sister and her fiancé christening their new union by screwing in my house. They said I was being gross and selfish. I said no again, so sis threatened to remove me from the bridal party. I just shrugged and said, okay. And then she starts crying, saying she already couldn't have her dream wedding like she wanted, and now I was trying to ruin her honeymoon too. I told her to rent a hotel room like every other newlywed couple, and then hung up. She's not speaking to me, and I'm uninvited to the wedding. Our parents keep calling me and saying I should do this for her since her wedding is only 1/3 of what she wanted it to be. But I'm not comfortable with them staying unsupervised at my house. They are making me feel like a monster for saying no. Am I the asshole? And edit, well, learned something new today. I spoke to my sister, like a few people suggested, and asked her if she knew the lake house was legally my house, as in I bought it years ago. She was not, in fact, aware of this. She was under the impression from our parents that they were letting me live there rent-free. I corrected her and even showed her proof that they sold the house to me, and when she asked why they sold it, I was honest and said that it was to pay for her college tuition and lifestyle. She became quiet after that, and we soon hung up. No idea what's going to happen now. I guess that sort of clears things up a little bit more, but I'm still going to go with not the a-hole for OP. His sister definitely is still an a-hole for having that expectation and the entitlement to think, oh yeah, I can just push you out of this house for 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm not going to discuss that with you. Oh, the parents said that it was all good. They've not said anything otherwise. That's just a grandeur level of entitlement, whether OP owns the house or not, and I don't know where they got that idea from, and then had the goal to argue with them on it and drag the parents in, and the parents still wouldn't tell her that OP owns the house. I'm so surprised about all of this, and I'm shocked that these things actually happen in real life. I'm gonna stay with not the a-hole OP. Your sister and your parents still suck and continue to suck. Now in the comments, Elaine219 says, even with the update, that sis didn't know her parents sold the house to him, and it's still pretty ballsy for her to expect him and his girlfriend to move out for 2 weeks so they can honeymoon there, since she did know they were living there already, free or not. Desperate Poem 8077 says, not the a-hole and gross. Who wants to do their honeymoon, activities in their brother's house? Ew. Not to mention, she didn't even ask you. If they can't afford to travel for their honeymoon, maybe they can take a first anniversary trip or something. Not the a-hole. And Chef Hedwig Naff says, definitely not the a-hole. I'm shocked that she would just assume that your house is automatically at her disposal for her unexpected honeymoon romping. But a bit of this miscommunication lies with your parents. You've owned the house for 4 years now, and they've never told her that by you buying the house, she was able to attend her dream college, and never corrected her recent thought process, instead accuse you of being gross and unfair. Your parents and your sister all owe you a huge apology, and you need to change the locks, get a security system with multiple cameras, and maybe even a fence around the property. This won't be your sister's last time assuming she's entitled to your house, especially if she knows when you won't be home. That's a bit drastic, but, you know, it's always good to be safe, I guess, but a fence around the house? That's a bit weird to me. And Favor the Bold says, wow on the updates. Did you find out if there was some parental fuckery with her stealing your things? I hope you asked her about it. And OP replies, I did actually. She seemed really uncomfortable with the topic of her theft, but I told her I felt like I deserved to know why she did that to me over and over when we lived together. She eventually broke down and admitted that at first, it was because of her being mad at me for ruining things for her. So she wanted to upset me like she'd been upset. But then she said our parents didn't really punish her, they didn't care, and acted like it didn't matter, so she just kept taking my stuff. I told her that regardless of her reasons for taking my stuff, the theft was a major reason why I didn't want her in my house without me or my girlfriend there. She said if it helps at all, she doesn't steal anymore. Yep, that's very believable, that one. She just doesn't steal anymore, she's changed her ways. Not since her second year of college. She told me she got a taste of her own medicine, but wouldn't specify how. I think whatever it was embarrassing for her. I'm really curious what happened, but we are still trying to get to know each other again, so I don't want to pry and come off as nosy. Anyway, our next post is by user SensitiveFun99, titled, Am I the Asshole? My classmate saved goldfish by releasing them into the ocean, and I called her an idiot. So my classmate recently made a TikTok, and she showed a group of people at lunchtime. They were next to our table, so I overheard the girl say, hey, look at my TikTok I made, come check it out. And in it, she explains how she rescued goldfish from the pet store and released them into the ocean so they can live free. I was horrified upon hearing this. I love fish and have several aquariums, so I'm fairly knowledgeable on them. I walk over and I ask her to show me the video, and I facepalmed. She asked me why, and I said, you realize you're actually an idiot, right? This is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. Her friend says, well, that's just rude. Why would you say that? Because she cares? To which I had to explain that goldfish are freshwater fish. They can't survive the ocean because it's salt water, so all of those goldfish were dead in minutes. They basically choked to death as salt filled up their gills. Lastly, you never release animals into the wild. There are goldfish that are destroying our rivers and lakes because of idiots like her. They say that I'm a bully and then walk away. I later get called into the principal's office, who told me that I was expected to apologize, and I said no. I stand by what I said, screw ignorant people who destroy the environment. My parents were called over, and I got sent home, and my parents are pissed that I refused to apologize. I might get suspended. Now in the comments, Sailor Doom says, not the a-hole. You're 100% right on both counts. That would have been a pretty awful death for the goldfish, and, yeah, releasing captive bred animals into the wild usually either results in that animal dying or local flora and fauna suddenly having to compete with an invasive species. She meant well, but that stark reality check on your part was definitely warranted. This. I don't even think she meant well. She just wanted people to think she meant well. She most likely did it for TikTok, not the fish. Not the a-hole, and good on you for standing your ground, OP. Don't apologize. Good point. She's probably willing to do anything for popularity. Also, goldfish aren't endangered, and are infamous for being an invasive species. Also, she probably should have realized that the fish was freshwater as she stole it from the store. Did she steal them or buy them? OP just said rescue. Not the a-hole, but a different approach might be more effective. Ask questions, like, did you know that goldfish are freshwater fish? Do you understand what happens to freshwater fish when they're released into saltwater? Lead her to her own idiotry. Yes, people who are ignorant need to warm up their brain by getting questions. You need to actively pull them into the conversation to get some legit response. If someone just piles up information upon information, they'll just get defensive and close up. OP, not the a-hole. I agree. A little tact can go a long way, and unfortunately, that is something that most teenagers lack, so I can't blame OP for how they reacted. It's a learned skill over time, not the a-hole. I also agree, but being a teenager doesn't give OP a pass to not show some tact. Never too early to learn some positive social skills. And Judge Judd AmITheA says, everyone sucks here. To quote the dude, you're not wrong, you're just an asshole. Your classmate is a well-meaning idiot, and you seem more interested in being superior than getting her to stop causing damage. Animal abuse is animal abuse. Right, but are you more interested in virtue signaling or creating effective change? But just because they're angry doesn't mean they're virtue signaling. Sometimes they're just angry at the stupid actions. Walking up to someone and outright calling them an idiot is an asshole move, regardless of the cause you're defending. Yeah, but the girl could have looked into the goldfish before rescuing them. She tortured those poor fish due to being an idiot, and it posted on social media. If I saw that, I would have commented that she's an idiot, and reported the video for animal abuse. And you would have done nothing to educate her. No one will take advice from a bully. Tact is important, emotional outbursts are childish and ineffective. Thank you. I'm glad someone has some sense in them. Our next post is by user Riskus, titled, Am I the a-hole for telling a neighbor she can't expect only old people to live in our street? So I moved into my house about 2 to 3 years ago. I'm 30 and look 20 with a family. It's also a British town, and my house is semi-detached in a street of terraced houses. I'm quite the introvert, so apart from my direct neighbours, I really made no attempt at getting to know the rest around my house. That being said, if someone speaks to me, I will happily speak to them. Cue to the incident, an OAP came up to me while I was taking stuff to my car, and she started asking questions. The usual stuff you ask new neighbours, but then she asked me when I planned on moving, which I thought was quite unusual. I told her I had no plans to move yet, and she went on to talk about how young people have started moving into the street, and it is much too noisy, especially those with families. She knew I had kids, but they barely spend any time outside, and how she wished that it went back to a street of old people. For about 10 minutes, there was nothing but low-key insults about young people. I couldn't really excuse myself as I had stuff to do with my car that was time-sensitive. So in the end, I just said, you can't expect only old people to live in a street. Eventually, they grow old and die. Maybe wait a few years and we'll be old and you'll have your street back if you're still around. She looked at me as if I just murdered her family and walked off. In the heat of the moment, I felt justified, but thinking back on it, I pretty much told her that she'll be dead soon, which no one really likes hearing. She just wouldn't stop talking about the good old times. Look, to be fair, it's so easy to look back on the good old times with rose-tinted glasses and not see any of those red flags or anything really wrong that happened because we don't want to remember the bad things. Even though in the here and now, we fixate on the negative and we fixate on what is wrong and we don't particularly cherish the positive things. And that's exactly what this elderly person is doing. They're fixating on the bad things and they don't see the good in this street and the good that new families can bring. That's a huge and inherent flaw in what they are presenting to you. I disagree with their statements and I think they should stick to their own business. I know some old people are very nosy. I know people in general are very nosy, and there's nothing particularly wrong with her sharing her opinion. There is, however, a lot wrong with her complaining about the noise that families bring. Kids are noisy, yes, I understand, but put up with it. And there is definitely something wrong with them asking, so when are you moving out? To that, I would just be like, no, go away. This conversation is done. That is so disrespectful. That's just me though. I'm obviously built different. Everyone is entitled to their own opinions, but to me I'd be like, alright, end of conversation, screw you. So OP, not the a-hole. Now in the comments, Adrenaline Anxiety says, not the a-hole. Hello, fellow British person moving into an elderly area. I have had very similar conversations. My entire street appears to be in the 60 to 80-year-old range, and I think they've forgotten other people exist. They get mad when my 4-year-old plays outside, and have made comments about how his trampoline and paddling pool are an eyesore. In our back garden, in our private space, but I guess they can see it from the windows. And how they miss the previous resident who was such a sweet old man who had a lovely garden that I've ruined with my kids' toys. He died, by the way. Sometimes these people need to be reminded about how selfish they're being and that retirement villages exist if they only ever want to encounter other elderly people. I certainly don't want anyone to die anytime soon, but at the same time, I really hope a few more families move into my area. And Delicious Lobster replies to that. My grandmother in the US had a young family move into the neighborhood, and they are all delighted to have a child around. They go to the child's school plays, have her over to bake cookies, and even take her to swim lessons. The kid's got a dozen new grandparents. Hexaline says, not the a-hole. This woman wants to stand around in your yard and insult you, ask you when you plan on leaving and make you feel unwelcome, yet she can't handle you saying anything back? Being old doesn't automatically entitle her to respect, nor does it give her a free pass to act like that. Whoa, 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 I was born before you, through no choice of my own, and haven't died yet. Surely that means I deserve preferential, almost reverential treatment, right? And if you say anything to me to defend yourself, explain the situation, or if you even appear to be offended, then you're a back-talking smartmouth, even though you're an established adult. And Olives and Cheese say, ooh, similar situation here. English town, previously full of old people, and a few young people have moved in. The old folks are genuinely horrendous. Everyone 55 or maybe 60s, basically those not retired and under, is trundling along, trying to get along with their neighbours, being respectful while still living their lives. And then there's this huddle of old assholes who are 65 plus, constantly moaning about gardens being a mess, people sitting outside after 7 PM, and if anyone has a barbecue, better not go on past 6. What if you want a bit of appropriately volumed, non-offensive music playing mid-late afternoon? Well, you may as well be Hitler. Not the a-hole, and I don't know when it got to be standard that older people are the crappiest, most entitled, unrelenting, horrible human beings, but this is definitely the case today. Our next post is by user Would Be Flat, titled, Would I be the a-hole for asking my mum not to pay my sister for babysitting? So my 16 female, sister, 13 female, and I babysit every other Tuesday for our small group. There's about 12 kids ranging from ages 2 to 9, and one 11-year-old who helps us out. We each get $15 for every time we babysit. My sister hasn't really been watching the kids recently. She sits and talks with the 11-year-old or plays on her phone if she has it. She doesn't interact with the kids, only helping them with something if I ask her to do it. She doesn't take initiative, and often, I'm left holding a crying child while trying to entertain a bunch of 7-year-olds. When I ask her to help, which I admit is often in a short tone, she snaps back and says, "Geez, OP, you need to work on your anger issues." She will only play with the kids if they come to her first, and even then is half-hearted. Yet when we get paid, she happily takes her share as if she's worked so hard. I know she's only 13 and it's a hard age, but I also feel like she's old enough to know that she needs to contribute more effort. So would I be the a-hole if I asked my mum to not pay her, or at least make sure the money is reflecting the work that is done? And edit, for everyone replying that we aren't charging enough, I know that. This is a voluntary service that we do for the adults at my church. I know we don't get paid much, but I'm happy to help the adults out. I love the kids and they're all well behaved. That's not the issue I'm trying to talk about here, but thank you all for your advice. And also, the parents are right above us. This isn't in a different building. My sister and I are mostly there to make sure no one gets hurt, and to make sure that they stay quiet enough for the Bible study going on. I know it's a lot of kids, but I don't have an issue with how everything is arranged. To be honest, this is a very messy situation, and you guys do need to be paid more for this service, regardless of what you think. That's obviously my 2 cents, and I know it's a voluntary service that you do for the adults at your church, but they need to pay you for this, and they need to pay you more. This is a sticky situation, and it's either everyone sucks here or no a-holes here. I'm more on the fence of no a-holes here because I feel like you're being taken advantage of, but that's just me. Now in the comments, Super Discussion 7161 says, "You babysit 12 kids that are the ages of 2 to 9 and one 11-year-old, and you get $15 for that? How long are these sessions, like 5 minutes?" And OP replies, "Lol, more like 2 hours, sometimes more. I know it's not great, but most of the mums are stay-home mums, and I feel bad for asking for more. My parents pay us an additional rate when we get home too, because they also agree that it's not really fair. You should start charging $10 a kid per hour, including the 11 and 13-year-old in my opinion, who you are still responsible for. Not $15 for the whole session. It's 100% fair to ask for more. You are being taken advantage of. What is it with church people thinking they're entitled to free childcare? Shame on these parents. They should not be asking a teen to babysit more than one kid at a time. What if something happens and OP can't handle it because she's responsible for 6 little kids at once? Ridiculous. Thrill Doctor 1 says, "Maybe not ask mum to not pay her. You should talk to your mother about your sister and her lack of helping. Then let your mother address your sister." This, explain that your sister hasn't been helping contribute to babysitting. No. Off topic, but that sounds like a lot of kids for a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old to babysit. And OP replies, "It's not too bad. The kids are pretty good at entertaining themselves, and the adults are right upstairs if we need something." Well, since the adults are upstairs, I 100% agree with your issue and say you would not be the a-hole if you tell your mum your sister is not helping out. Also, this detail may be important for the other adults to know in case they were considering hiring her to babysit while they were out. And Forp Dongle says, "You would not be the a-hole. Your sister needs to learn that rewards come from effort. You are being a grass, yeah, but it's crap that she's taking money for a 2-person job that she's shoving on to you. To be honest, I don't know who's making a 13-year-old babysit. I would never trust a 13-year-old with my children, no matter how mature they are." And Webby Vanderquack says, "Everyone sucks here. She does need to learn to do what she's committed to, but asking your mother to pay her is not the solution, nor is it the way that jobs are handled in the real world. What you can do is talk to your mother about the fact that your sister isn't helping out and you feel you're doing most of the work."